Wasabi guys, welcome back to another 10 underrated commander cards video. This series where I discuss 10 undervalued or underplayed cards and how they deserve a home in your decks. As always, if you appreciate these videos, please hit the subscribe button, it really does help me. First card to talk about today is Desecrated Tomb. It even comes with a pretty cool promo art, which I really like from M19. It's not a very strong card in terms of just creature token presence, you're not going to be getting anything bigger than 1/1s, but I still like how this is a unique interaction, where you deal with creature cards leaving your graveyard, not just entering, which is typical of most aristocrat strategies. It's great for graveyard decks where you're constantly getting creatures back from your graveyard, or even if you have a way of returning creatures from your graveyard to your hand, or shuffling them back into your library. What's great is that this doesn't require it to leave in a specific way, so you have plenty of options here if you're looking to synergize with it. What's even more fun is that it has combo potential. I make a lot of combo shorts talking about infinite combo potential, and most of those aren't very practical. They're just fun to talk about. This is one of those cards where I think if you were to combo with it, it's not going to be a super practical combo, but it'll be a fun combo. Even if you're not comboing with it though, it's still a decent card in terms of just getting creature presence, and I know that's what a lot of people look for in their decks. They want some numbers, they want to go wide, or maybe just get some extra sacrifice fodder. That's where I believe this card shines. It's still incredibly affordable, even though value isn't the main focus of this series. That's more of the Magic Market watch and the commander pickups. 10 underrated commander cards is more about the practical options. Maybe not going to be the best card in your deck, but it could definitely hold its own. Next we have Dismantling Wave from Commander 2020. This is actually a really good card, and I'm still surprised that it hasn't gone up in value. Again, we're not focusing on value entirely. I'm not going to do this to you where I put a card in here that's $40 or $50 and say more people need to play it, because clearly at that point it's not underrated. So just assume that most of the cards here are not going to cost you much at all. For each opponent, you destroy up to one target artifact or enchantment that player controls, and a cycling cost of 8 mana, so you discard it to draw a card. And when you cycle it, you destroy all artifacts and enchantments, so it's pure artifact and enchantment hate, and I love that. I think this is really going to shine because of its 3 mana cost. I think in Commander, if you're able to deal with multiple problems and not just one, you really don't want to spend more than 4 mana, because then it keeps you from doing other things during your turn, and I think 3 is that sweet spot, where you could play it and then have something else to follow it up with. The cycling is nice though. I will say that late game, if you have nothing else to do, being able to destroy all artifacts and enchantments is incredible. And then we have Wavebreak Hippocamp from Tarrasque Beyond Death. I really like how unconventional this card draw is, and I like how you saw this in Tarrasque Beyond Death where there was an emphasis on playing on your opponent's turns. This is one of those cards that enabled you. You don't even really have to be that aggressive, you just have to recognize when you have the opportunity to maybe cast a harmless instant like Brainstorm. Doing that on an opponent's turn is going to net you another card. And you don't even have to treat this like the card where you would want to do something on every opponent's turn, just more likely the opponent who goes before you. That way you still have your mana up for responses. For the same mana, you can play something like Rhystic Study, which isn't guaranteed card draw. What I like about this is that it is a guaranteed card draw. It's not depending on your opponent's spending mana. It directly triggers off of spells that you play. And then we have Deathgreeter from Shards of Alara. The only common you're gonna see here, and it's pretty incredible. Whenever another creature is put into a graveyard from play, you may gain 1 life. So any creature dying, it could be a board wipe, it could be a sacrifice combo, you're gonna gain 1 life every time that happens. It's basically the Bizarro World version of Soul Warden. It's like a lot of the cards that I mentioned in this series, it's not gonna blow you away at first. Something little like this that sits on the field and gains you 1 life at a time will add up over the course of a commander game. While something like Soul Warden is still preferable because the chances of a creature entering the battlefield is a lot higher than one going to the graveyard, this isn't far behind. That is still a common occurrence in a game. And if a board wipe happens, and this leaves at the same time, this sees every other creature dying and going to the graveyard too. So it's nice insurance, it helps pad your life total, and for only 1 black mana, you could do a lot worse than this. And then we have another black card here from Commander 2019, Gift of Doom. This was probably my favorite Morph card from that whole deck, and I wasn't really a big fan of Morph. I'm guessing because this isn't really so much about the advantage of having a Morph creature, or even getting a Morph trigger for something else. No, this is purely about the response and the ability to protect a creature by giving it indestructible. The Morph cost does require you to sacrifice another creature, which, it's a caveat, but not always a downside for those decks that want to sacrifice creatures. Again, Deathgreeter, a great card for that. So it could act as a one-time sack outlet for whatever you need to sacrifice, and you're giving an essential creature such as your commander Indestructible and Death Touch. Oh, did I mention it has Death Touch? So yeah, if your commander has any way of dealing 1 damage to a creature, it's pretty much indestructible and now it has a Death Ray. This card slaps. Having the option here of just playing it for that 3 mana as the morph cost, and then sacrificing another creature just to turn it into an aura, saves you so much mana as well. I really like this card and just how it protects a creature in black. We have a lot of other ways of protecting creatures in black. We have artifacts that can give hexproof and shroud, of course, but Gift of Doom is actually one of the underrated cards that I try to fit into more decks. Every time I think about brewing a new deck, I'm like, can Gift of Doom fit it in some way? So if you're playing an aristocrat deck where you're sacrificing a lot of creatures for abilities, you need to play Gift of Doom at least once, because it could very well be one of the best plays of the game. Then we have Final Parting from Dominaria. I briefly discussed this card when talking about how to build around Magar from Unfinity. For 5 mana, you search your library for 2 cards, you put one into your hand and the other into your graveyard, which is one of the more multi-purpose tutors you're going to find in black. We have a lot of tutors that specifically search for cards to put into your graveyard, and we have plenty of tutors that search for cards to put directly into your hand. We don't really have that many that do both, and certainly not in just black. While it is a bit more expensive than what you would want to spend on average for a tutor, you are getting a 2-for-1 here. And you're going to want to play it, of course, if your deck can synergize with the graveyard, because if it can't, you're better off just playing a demonic tutor. Because there's no question that the search to your hand part is going to be relevant for every deck. So if you're looking to play a graveyard strategy, Final Parting is way more relevant to you. What's also worth pointing out is that it doesn't specify what you're searching. Buried Alive is a card that will search for 3 creature cards, Entomb will just search for any card, period. So Final Parting not specifying what card you have to search is also incredible. And it also means you don't have to reveal the one you put into your hand. So it'll give you that advantage that the legendary demonic tutor will also give you. If you're looking to build on a super budget, Final Parting is one of the best cards you can play, period, as it's not going to break the bank, and I think you could get away with putting it in decks where your budget's a lot higher too. Next we have Harmonic Prodigy from Modern Horizons 2. This card still hasn't been recognized for what it is, and what it is absolutely broken. If the ability of a shaman or another wizard you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. We have tons of wizard commanders, and we even have some really good shaman cards that could take advantage of this, although I will say this is a little bit more beneficial to wizards because you have things like Nekasar that get double the triggers. I mean, can you imagine that? We have plenty of wizard commanders that are just busted with this ability. Getting an additional trigger means that comboing is even easier than it's ever been, and wizards are very combo heavy in blue. Being from Modern Horizons 2, it also suffers from just that set being opened a lot. It doesn't have that much of a premium, but I think over time it will, and this is going to see more and more play, especially in Commander where you have a lot of good Commander options with powerful triggers. It could be an activated ability or a triggered ability, it doesn't matter. The fact that this is only a 2-mana creature is very flexible. Don't have to focus on the prowess because the prowess doesn't really matter here. What you're getting is great value. It is modern playable, so that is potential for it to go up in value. But I think if we care about the value of playability, Harmonic Prodigy is super underrated. Next we have Aetherflash from Weatherlight. I've talked about this card before, and just how crazy it is to deal 2 damage to a creature that enters the battlefield. This happens for every creature entering the battlefield, so the creatures I've shown you so far, Wavebreak Hippocamp and Deathgreeter, those are both dead. Yeah, they don't get to survive with Aetherflash. And it's not just going to be smaller creatures. You have a lot of creatures with a high power and a low toughness. Those are going to get dealt a bunch of damage. If you have any way of synergizing with damage dealt to creatures like Repercussion, this is pretty brutal, because that damage is being dealt to their controller. It's been reprinted a couple times, but it hasn't seen that much play in Commander. I think if you're more interested in the chaotic side of Commander, this would be a card for you. It's just always something I thought would be more fun. Then we have Uncaged the Menagerie from Hour of Devastation. X and 2 green for this sorcery. You search your library for up to X creature cards with different names that each have converted mana cost X, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. I like how you can manipulate your deck, and because this is Commander, you're pretty much guaranteed to have creature cards with different names in your library. So if you know your deck is filled with a lot of creatures that share the same converted mana cost, like let's say you have a lot of creatures mana value 4, you would just spend 6 mana and get 4 of those 4 drops, which for the mana is a pretty good deal. But unfortunately, because you're only able to search for up to X, you have to go for the higher cost so that you get more value in return for it. But I still think it's great. Next up we have the Tarrasque from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. Another green mythic, and this is another one that I think anytime you get a big, massive green mythic like this, it's got to be worth something. And it's not really that expensive, it's only like a few dollars. Has haste and ward 10 as long as it was cast. Whenever it attacks, it fights target creature defending player controls. I love the ward 10 on this because it means your opponents are probably never going to target it with a single spell, and it does make up for the fact that this creature does not have trample. I don't know if you guys have noticed from the artwork, but it not having trample doesn't make any sense at all because it is literally trampling over a village. But that's forgivable since it has a pretty good trigger with haste, so you can fight a creature the defending player controls, immediately pulling its weight. We have a lot of creature decks where it's so easy to reduce the cost of something like this. Throw it into Animar and you don't have to worry about that. Anyway, that's going to do it for these 10 underrated Commander cards. Let me know what you think about them in the comment section below. Feel free to leave the names of any cards that you believe are underrated. Commander Void here signing off. I will see you all next time.